Welcome back to AM Agenda. Now to our regular panel, Labor MP Ed Husic and Liberal MP Josh Frydenberg. Gentlemen, good morning.
G'day, how are you?
Good morning,
Ed.
Good morning, Kieran.
Josh.
Let's start with Ed, if we can. The Galaxy poll, a majority want an election. Ed, the government, is it not listening to the people on this?
Well, we've got 2013's the year that's set aside for the election itself, and in that time we're going to make sure we get things done. And one of the biggest things we can do right now is put forward a plan that will cut 160 million tonnes of carbon dioxide out of the air by 2020. We're working on that plan, and we've just got to go through the case of talking with people and listening to their concerns and getting things done to make sure that the people that follow us have as good a quality of life as what we're enjoying right now.
Ed, it doesn't look like people are listening, though. If you look at this poll, it shows most people think they're going to be worse off.
Well, under what we're proposing, 9 out of 10 households will get some level of support. We'll make sure that for the $9.90 a week on average, the prices might increase. There'll be a compensation of about $10.10. And we're, in the meantime, as a result of that support, we'll see, as I said earlier, the equivalent of 45 million cars taken off the road by 2020 because we're cutting emissions by 160 million tonnes.
So why aren't people suggesting then, when surveyed, that they're going to be better off if you say that two-thirds are either compensated or overcompensated?
Because it's early days, we've got to get the detail out. We've been saying that about this time, from early on, we've been saying that we would have the detail out about now. And now it's, details announced Sunday, and we're going through and explaining what this means. So it's, there are hard roads or hard days ahead for sure, but we've got to get through the process. Nothing's easy on this type of reform work. We just got to get the job done.
Josh, what do you make of this opinion poll? Obviously, it's in line with a lot of others that we've seen recently. The coalition has all the momentum at the moment, no doubt about it.
Look, Kieran, I mean, the fact is this carbon tax is born out of Julia Gillard's political weakness. It's the Greens' carbon tax, and now Julia Gillard and the Labor Party are going to own it. The fact is people are listening. They're actually knowing that under a carbon tax their household budgets will be cut through higher electricity prices. They can see jobs going offshore, and they can see this massive budget black hole which is going to hurt Australia at a time that there's great global economic uncertainty. So I think they are listening. I think they're also seeing that the Prime Minister is in a flagrant breach of her pre-election promise that she wouldn't introduce a carbon tax, and the message is loud and clear for Ed and his colleagues that this is a diabolically bad policy. It's a toxic tax and people do not want it at this time.
Okay, Ed, how long do you think before... obviously, you're hoping that this will eventually turn around. How long before you think you'll start seeing it in the polls? Is it going to be a year, 18 months? What do you say it's early days right now?
Yeah, look, I'm not going to put a time frame to how long that's going to take. As I said, particularly in the face of a fear campaign that's been run by the other side. I mean, I know a bloke. Well, hang on a second, Josh. Let me get to it. I actually remember reading the words of a bloke from the other side of the political fence who in 2007 said that climate change is not, never should be, a partisan issue. And I think that was, that was you. That's right, in The Age, in 2007.
What about the carbon tax? Is that ever going to be a partisan issue? Of course it should be. That's not our policy.
Putting a price on pollution.
This is not about climate change. This is actually about a bad policy outcome for Australians, Ed.
Well,
this
putting
is
a
about
price on
Australia
pollution.
Going it alone. This is about Australia going it alone.
Okay, Josh, I'll get you to respond to that, Josh. But the thing is there a risk here for the coalition that obviously you're well in front now, but there's no real way to make the election happen because surely Julia Gillard won't call an election now, given how disastrous her opinion polls are. Are you concerned that people will just switch off to this, that after the tax goes in, that it will just become, so what, when the sky doesn't fall in?
Well, Kieran, I think the truth is the Gillard government is becoming a day-by-day proposition. There are a lot of nervous Labor backbenchers at the moment, and we can see them manoeuvring. And Julia Gillard was asked yesterday by Neil Mitchell about Bill Shorten being sounded out for the leadership. This talk will continue to abound because her polling is so poor, and she is proceeding with the Greens carbon tax, and it's going to be bad for Australia. So if I was Ed, I'd be pretty nervous about the future for their political prospects. And
Ed,
while an election might be a couple of years' time, Ed, while an election, in your view, might be in a couple of years' time, the bulk of Australians want it tomorrow, and I think you should listen.
Well,
yeah,
I think
but let's get Ed. I'll get you to respond, but also Ed, on that line that Josh has used a number of times this morning, the Greens carbon tax. How damaging is that to the government that there's a perception out there, it's in the Galaxy poll again today, more than 60% believe the Greens have too much influence?
Well, we, after the election, put together a panel, a multi-party climate change committee. We invited the opposition to be in there. We gave them an opportunity to be able to shape the way that this is all put together to put a price on pollution, and they didn't want to. But let me come back to this point. You know, leadership is not about, like what Tony Abbott's been going the other day, saying, I'm going to stake my career on fighting this tax. Well, if leadership was about handing out fairy floss, that'd all be good. But leadership is about convincing people that their first instinct, in terms of they may not necessarily support it on their first instinct, but their future, their children's future, the ones that follow them, we need to look after those people. Leadership is about convincing people that what they don't necessarily embrace in the first blush is something that's good for the nation. That's what we're doing, and I got no nerves on that.
Kieran, I think Kevin Rudd was showing leadership until Wayne Swan and Julia Gillard knifed him. I think that's the reality here. I mean, Labor leaders are going to be susceptible to the polling, and they're going to be susceptible to what their backbench is. And the fact is, Ed and his fellow Labor colleagues in caucus weren't even consulted on the details of the carbon tax.
Not right.
So you had, it is right.
Not
You
right.
had Christine Milne, you had Bob Brown, you had Tony Windsor, and you had Rob Oakeshott deciding what the policy
let
was.
me ask you about Josh, I want to ask you a question similar to what I asked Andrew Robb earlier, but the Coalition is promising all things to all people at the moment, tax cuts, pension rises, all without the carbon tax revenue stream. As a Conservative, someone who obviously believes in tax cuts but obviously wants to fund them, how are you going to go about funding these billions of dollars of commitments?
Well, firstly, we have said that our direct action plan is fully funded and costed, and it is a lot cheaper than Labor's plan. So we said that before the election, and nobody quibbled with that. As for tax cuts, we will give you proper tax cuts, not lifting the thresholds as this government has done, 15 to 19% and 30 to 33%.
Turn up the lights on this one. Turn up the lights on that. So you reckon lifting the tax threshold 3 times and not having people have to pay additional tax? You don't reckon that's worth it?
You're lifting
turn up
from
the lights
15
on
to
that.
19. Ed, you're the first government since 83, 84 to do this. Why has it taken this many years for someone to do it? Because it's bad policy. But again, it's the Labor government who's doing it.
Josh and Ed, appreciate it on a winter's morning. Always a fiery chat. Good on you, gents.
Thank you. Thanks, Josh.
That's all for this
Ed.
program. And make sure you join us at lunchtime, 1:30 p.m. Eastern for Lunchtime Agenda. I'm Kieran Gilbert. Thanks for your company.